Hello, fourth grade. I am going to be drawing with you today. Now, if you have worked with me on one of my drop-in drawing Wednesdays, you'll recognize this program. Either way, whether you do or don't recognize it, I want you to imagine that this is a regular piece of paper. I'm going to be drawing on the computer. I want you to draw on your paper. So go ahead and get a piece of paper. Make sure it's laid portrait, which is this long way, like mine, and get yourself a pencil or a marker, whatever you want to draw in. I'm going to be drawing in pencil. It'll look like pencil at least. So we're going to be drawing ourselves a landscape, but not just any landscape. We're going to draw a delicate arch. So just like our landscapes that I taught you in third grade, you have a couple of things you want to remember. That is our background, our middle ground, and our foreground. All right? Don't actually write those words on your paper, my friends, but keep those in mind. Now, we remember that the background is the thing that's highest on the page. So I'm going to take my pencil on one side of the paper and draw as straight of a line as I can across. I'm not using a ruler. You can if you want to, but I don't need to since this is nature, and nature doesn't really have a lot of straight lines. Now, this is what we call the horizon. And in Utah, what is often in the horizon? Mountains. But our mountains are not zigzags. They're kind of more gentle slopes up. Let your pencil wiggle. If it wiggles, it's going to look more real. Gentle slopes down. They overlap a bit. Some of them are bigger than others. Some are smaller. And we're just going to work across. Now, something important, if you're using a pencil, I want you to draw very lightly because we're going to be erasing the background, part of the background. If you're using a pen or a marker or something, you might want to save the background for later, just so that you don't get yourself confused, okay? Now, next, I want to put in our line for our middle ground. So this scenery that we're drawing, Delicate Arch, has a big rock in the middle. And remember, the middle ground is usually below the background, right? So we've got our big rocks. See these wavy lines going all the way down to the side? And then on our middle ground is going to be Delicate Arch itself. Now, if you're using a pencil, I recommend drawing the big shapes first, right? So our big shape is the arch itself. That was so light you can't even see it. Mrs. Hendricks is going to try again. Now that's not what the arch looks like, but it's a good guide for us to follow. So I have the Delicate Arch has kind of a flat top. Again, you don't have to use a ruler or anything because this is nature. It's not like when the rocks eroded, they used rulers. And coming down the left side, it curls over. We don't want to get too far away from that guideline we drew, but we do want to get close to it at one point, and then it comes down for the foot of the arch. Then we're going to have a swoop in the front. We're going to go up and then curl in towards the middle, over and up. See how I'm at about the middle point and it curls into a point? That's when we're going to start moving down again, over, and on the right side, it has a big foot. I actually don't like this point that I drew. Maybe you don't like it either. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to get my eraser and erase the line that I had put in. I like that better. Okay, switching back to my pencil. Now at the right side of our top shelf, we're going to come straight down and then curve almost following the exact same pattern as that arch line we made originally. And this foot also has a curve in the front. Okay, so This is our delicate arch itself. Now we need to go ahead and erase the guidelines. And while I'm in there, I'm also going to erase the parts of the background that we shouldn't see because the arch is in front of it. Now it's going to be a lot faster for me to erase because I'm using a computer than it is for you. So if you need to pause me and erase to catch up, go ahead. All right, I'm ready to move on. So now's your chance to pause. Okay, so our we've got our background. We've got our middle ground. Now we need to add our foreground. So for our foreground, we're going to add a couple of details, some rocks and some plants. Now you can put these anywhere you want. The photo I'm using as a reference doesn't actually have rocks and plants in the front. I think that it looks a little boring without them, so I wanted to add them. So for some rocks, if you do want to add a rock, a good way to draw a rock is a wobbly, smooth triangle shape with a line that comes down the front. And believe it or not, that kind of looks like a rock. We're going to do a smaller one too for a pebble. And let's put another rock over here. This rock is going to be a longer one. See, it's still a triangle shape, isn't it? And then that wobbly line in the front. If you want, you can add extra lines because different types of rocks have different types of lines. And then let's go ahead and add a bush. I think that would be nice, a big bush at the bottom of our page. So we're going to have lines, just straight lines that come in and out, because what kind of ecosystem can you find delicate arch? It's a really dry, arid, almost desert type, right? So the plants that live around delicate arch are going to be deserty plants. I don't want to see big leafy plants, but these thin, kind of prickly bushes. That looks more realistic. Now it's time to add details. Woo, because we've got our foreground done as well. Foreground. So let's get rid of these guys that I was using to talk to you guys and think about some details. First, let's go ahead and add details to our rocks, our mountains in the background, our rocks in the foreground and the middle ground. Now, the mountains in the very far back, these are the Rocky Mountains, and the picture I have in front of me, shows them with snow on top. So a good way to show snow on top of mountains is those wobbly lines at the top. And as you know, when there's snow on the mountains, it's kind of striped, a bluish color and a whitish color. That's going to be really pretty when you start to color. And now our middle ground in front, we have some sedimentary rocks. I'm going to add a little bit of height over here so that it looks more symmetrical. Sedimentary rocks are layers, right? So let's go ahead and give some striped details to the background. We don't want to go too crazy with the stripes though, because this is still the background, and the background is more of a faded, faint thing in the distance. Now, our middle ground, let's go ahead and get our eraser out, and I'm going to erase the parts of the mountain that should be covered up by this rock I added. You might have not even added that rock. If you did, make sure it looks nice and neat. And now, sedimentary rocks aren't always straight across. Sometimes they're kind of angled. Think about what forms sedimentary rocks. Think about the process that the earth has to go to when you're putting in the lines. Maybe some of the layers were closer together, maybe some were farther apart. And let's add another rock in the front because we're adding details. We can do that, right? Okay, Now, Delicate Arch itself has that same sedimentary rock effect with the layers. So go ahead and add stripes to Delicate Arch. That's going to make it be the rock formation that we all are used to. And remember something very important about sedimentary rocks and Delicate Arch itself. If you have a stripe on one leg, it has to stripe on the other side, because I'm going to pause and do a quick science lesson. Not science lesson, but science reminder. If you have, when the rock was formed, these layers went straight across like this. So then when the wind eroded the middle of the rock, those stripes would show up on both sides. That's really important. Now, hopefully you weren't actually highlighting and just following along with me. So getting back to our stripes that we're going to see on both sides, I'm going to do 3 here. You don't have to match mine. I can't see in the photo exactly how the stripes look. The photo's kind of far in the distance, so I'm just adding stripes where I think they would look good. And some of them I'm going to push really hard, and some of them I'm going to be really soft. But I put them on that side, which means I need to put them on this side too. Okay, I think that's enough stripes for now on Delicate Arch. Now, we also would want to add some details, some little dots of dust in the desert, maybe some cracks. Oh yeah, if you've ever gone hiking in Arches National Park, you can remember how dusty it is. So we'll show some of that dust. Okay. Now I am satisfied with the drawing itself. I am ready to add color. This is where it's going to be different for some of us. If you have colored pencils, if you have watercolors or markers, you can color along with me. If you don't, it would be a good idea to add some shading. And the first thing that you would want to shade is the shadow behind Delicate Arch. Let's go ahead and start coloring though. I'm going to use colored pencil. Now, this part is super important, my friends. The fact that I'm using a computer and you are not is going to change how fast I can color. Plus, I would love you to sit down and draw and color for 30 minutes, an hour, and I don't want you to sit and watch my video that long either. So it's going to be a lot faster for me to color than you. All right, but you can still see the colors that I'm picking, and that might help you make some choices. I'm using a colored pencil, an electronic colored pencil, and I'm going to be careful to not color on top of my details. And I am going to color inside the rocks, the big rocks at least. Because remember, this area where Delicate Arch is, Arches National Park, they're all made up of these beautiful red rocks. So use warm colors. Think about your warm colors, red, orange, yellow, and use those to color. Now you'll notice I'm going all the way around things like my bushes. I'm not even getting close to them. That's because since I'm coloring so fast, I don't have the ability to be really careful and close and detailed in those spaces. Think about that when you're coloring too. When you're coloring, if you're coloring really fast, then because you're coloring big spaces, that's not the time to do your detail work. Your detail work comes later. We do big first and then little, and that includes in our coloring. Okay, This isn't perfect, but I don't want you to sit here for 30 minutes like I said. It's already been 15. So I should go faster. We want our sky to be blue. I'm going to get a bigger one. And something that's cool about blue skies, if it's clear outside when you're watching this, I want you to go outside and look at the sky afterwards. You'll notice, if you're looking close enough, that the blue sky is darker on top and then it gets lighter as it gets closer to the earth. That's because of the angle of the colors and the angle of the sky and the angle of your eyes. So I'm coloring really, really light when I get down here to the bottom. Really, really light. You can even leave it white if you want at the bottom. Okay, again, not perfect, but no one said we had to be. Oops, I got on top of my rock. I made a mistake. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna leave it. I'm trying really hard not to press undo, you guys. Now, for our delicate arch. For this middle ground, you can pick the colors you think look nice. In real life, it's this big, darker brown color with some green mixed in. So I'll go ahead and throw that in. But just think about warm colors and complementary colors. That, now that I've worked on this project for a little bit, that's going to be my challenge. I'm going to try and only use complementary colors. Now, complementary colors are two colors that are across on the color wheel. You know that big color wheel I have in my classroom? Complementary colors are across from each other. And orange down here and blue up in the sky are two complementary colors, which is why they look so bright and bold when they're next to each other. See how pretty that is? So I've got my orange. Oh, and you might say, but Mrs. Hendricks, you used brown. Brown is related to orange. Brown is what happens when you take orange and you mix in black. A lot of you will probably remember that from your pet paintings, when you had to mix all those colors together to get the right shades of brown. So my orange is going on top. Now I want my mountains, where there isn't snow, to be a bluish gray. Now why bluish gray? That's because they're really far away. And another thing that you can notice when you're outside looking at the blue sky, like I told you to, is that the mountains that are farther away from your house are going to look almost blue. And the mountains that are close to your house are going to look like they're regular colors. If you don't have mountains close to your house, next time you're driving around, you can see that. Look at the mountains that are close, see what color they are. Look at the mountains that are far away. See how they're blue and they almost disappear. I like to do that with my 5th graders actually at school. Okay, now I'm leaving these big white spots because we can work on those later. But something about those stripes. Think about the sedimentary rocks that you've studied. The stripes are visible because they're different colors. So maybe some of your stripes are a dark orange where you push really hard. Maybe some of them are a lighter one where you go over it with an eraser. Maybe some of them are brighter orange like that. Ooh, that's pretty. And maybe some of them are almost a reddish color. Red on top of the orange. That could be redder to show you what I'm talking about. Red. There we go. Red. And you can do that with your other striped things as well. You should, really. Anywhere that you put in stripes because it's sedimentary rocks, make sure that those stripes aren't just in pencil. They should also show up in your coloring or your shading. Okay. Now, before I finish our recording, I'm going to finish touching up my detail areas. So I'm going to get that color that I used for my sandy, dusty dirt. I'm going to go in between, in between, in between, in between, in between. The nice thing is I know I'm going to use a yellowish color for my plant since I want it to look dry. And so if I get some of this peach on top of the plant, it's really okay. In between, in between, in between. Oof, oof. In between. And then let's go ahead and get our yellow or more yellow color. That's a good way to add details. Now, if it's a bright day and the sky is blue, that means the sun is out, right? And if the sun is out, it means that we have shadows. So we need to add in the shadows. I think it would be pretty if the shadows were behind the arch. In the photo, the shadows are in the front, but I don't have time for that. So what we do is get the same color that you used, and I would like you, actually, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to do. Get your pencil, actually, and for the shadow, draw very, very lightly behind the arch at an angle. You're trying to mimic the shapes that you drew. So you should have a big shadow where it has the feet. And it should be nice and thin where they connect. Don't get impatient. Draw very lightly. Give it that flat top. And make sure it's at an angle as well. Okay, that's not perfect, but that's okay. And the same type of shadow should be behind at the same angle for everything else that you drew. For your plants, for your little rocks, your big plants. Okay, this is looking pretty cool, I think. I have some touch-up details I want to do, and this is where I'm going to leave you guys. So it's already been almost 30 minutes, and I said I didn't want you in front of the computer for 30 minutes. So I'm going to stop and add details, and I'm going to post the picture that's finished I'm going to give it to your teachers so that you can try and figure out what details did I add. And that is a good artistic exercise to see the differences between the two pictures and then to see what details can I add to my picture. So that's Delicate Arch. I'd love to see yours. Good luck.